You mean it was Old Man Jenkins, the janitor haunting the school the whole time? You should look at the NECA Toony Terrors. This is a Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger. Bring the fun of Saturday morning cartoons to your horror collection with these adorable little creeps. Pick your favorites or collect them all and make every day Toony Terror time. So the first thing we're going to do for this review to get started is we're going to measure off to the very top of Freddy Krueger. I can tell you, and you could probably guess it for yourself, he's a little bit shorter than Jason Voorhees, kind of in more of a creeping pose. In the way of his dimensions, you're looking at a figure that's standing 5.2. So yeah, a little bit shorter than Jason Voorhees. And switching that over to centimeters, looking at a figure standing 13.2, a little over 13 centimeters tall. For some size comparisons, we'll move over Freddy Krueger, and there's Jason Voorhees. Yeah, quite a bit of a size difference. To be fair, though, you could chalk it up to the fact that Freddy Krueger is crouched. If he was standing straight, he'd probably be a little over the shouldered area of Jason Voorhees. Those are the two figures that we had to look at first and foremost. We still got another two figures to have a look at, and those would be the Pennywise the Clowns. Loving and digging both of these so much. Now also, full disclosure, Jason Voorhees does come with a clear post, clear stand. That was the clear stand that I included. Didn't come included with the figure inside the packaging. You probably already know that if you've seen the review. Freddy Krueger, on the other hand, over there, in order for him to stand properly, most definitely you'll have to display him with the black included display stand. Just before we do that, though, here is the packaging that came included with Freddy Krueger. We spin it around, and unlike the wooded area that came included with Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger instead comes with what looks to be the interior of a boiler room. You can see that there's the perforations running around the edge. So all you need is a pair of scissors or a knife. Scissors might be a little bit more safer for you. You're just going to cut around that until you got the backdrop ready. Once you get it all cut out, this is what it looks like for the backdrop. And again, unfortunately, because they don't include a stand, there's nothing really to allow the stand to stand. Yes, you could probably just take the Toony Terrors and just put it in front and then drape the backdrop against it, but it's not really going to work such a small figure like Freddy. I really wish that they could have included, like I said in the Jason review, like a little circular base, a little slot in the top. You just slot that in place. I will admit, though, I'm not as jazzed about Freddy's backdrop as I was with Jason Voorhees. I think Jason Voorhees actually could work across the board on all the four figures that we're going to be having a look at. I think it just looks a little bit nicer, personally speaking. Proportionally, I feel like the pipes are maybe a little too big, and really I think if they had gone continuing the route of putting the backdrop all in silhouette, I think that would be the most effective. They could easily have done the exact same thing here, which is silhouetting the pipes and having that in the background. I think it's a little too close for comfort, and I think the pipes are a little bit too big to be displaying with the figure, but that's just me. Both, like I said, both figures backdrops, for what they are good. I mean, it's again a nice little accompanying piece, but in all honesty, I think I like Jason's just a little bit more. Freddy looks like he's about to wander off. Don't be going anywhere, Freddy. Let's have a look at the figure. Now, this one does come with the display stand. I mentioned that at the beginning of this review. The thing about this display stand, it's very impossible. It's not completely impossible. It's very difficult, would be the better word to describe it, to get the figure on the base. His feet don't actually line up. As you can, well, maybe now I've stretched them a little bit. When you immediately get this out of the packaging, his feet don't really line up to the holes. It really involves you then to put one foot in, like so, and you can see, okay, there's a better idea. you'd have to kind of stretch the foot across, pull the leg across until it finally lands on that peg joint. And you can get the figure onto the base like that. I guess you really don't need both feet on it, but it definitely does give you a much more secure footing. I have not tried this with Jason. I'm going to just take him off of the clear stand. By the way, these are just regular NECA clear stands. I invested in, got a whole, not box, but a whole package of those. And yeah, you can put Freddy on there as well if you don't want, you know, a very visible black stand underneath. You could display Freddy on just a regular clear NECA stand. And these ones are, you can buy at any store, Targets and Toys R Us and stuff like that. So we'll go ahead and get the figure off the stand. Other than having to pry the legs to fit them onto the pegs, I'm quite impressed with this Freddy Krueger. Again, this is a toonier representation of what you could imagine Freddy Krueger to almost be if he was in the world of like a old Hanna-Barbera or old 80s cartoon. This one's a little bit more gruesome than, I think, the more cartoonier looking Jason Voorhees, but it still has cartoon aspects to it. One of my favorite aspects, actually, is the blades on his fingers. I didn't like initially how they looked so broad, so thick. They almost look like box cutter blades. But I think the more I look at it, the more I'm actually enjoying the fact that they're done like this. It's over the top, it's exaggerated, and you would almost imagine if there was somebody underneath the mask of Freddy who's simply just there to scare the town folk away, then maybe his glove would represent that as well. And it looks a little less menacing. It certainly looks a little bit more cartoon when you have the blades like this. So I'm actually digging these. One thing about it, though, is as I mentioned with Jason's, you'll see that the reflection works the same way. The blades are done in a dark blue, and a lighter blue represents the light that's reflecting off of them. I think, again, it works really, really well. I hope they continue that with future Toony terrors. Now this one is in a crouched position, resulting in the figure looking and coming across much smaller than Jason Voorhees. I kind of like that they don't all have standing poses. The Pennywise the Clowns also are slightly bent in the knees as well. We'll have a look at those also in future reviews. But it does seem like Freddy, from the two that I've looked at and the other two looking in packaging, that he might be the smallest of the lot. Again, it works well for the type of character that Freddy is. Imagine more like a creeping, stalking character lurking around the woods, lurking around the abandoned schoolyards, for example, just waiting for those pesky kids to scare away. For his face sculpt, it is really neat. It doesn't look so much like burns, although his skin would certainly look like burns, but it looks more like gashes in the red there. His face, and I like, again, the sunken down eyelids there. You can see his visible teeth. His teeth much shinier, much pearly white, much more pearly white than regular Freddy Krueger you would expect to actually have. Trademark items like the striped sweater. Now he does have a pair of gray slacks, but I guess that works well for Freddy. But the alternating green and red are done in dark colors, not the sore on the eyes regular colors that were originally conceived for Freddy. It kind of goes instead the route of a darker color, and I think it works well again for Freddy. Like Jason, he's got the rips along the bottom of his sweater and also in the sections of his sleeve. The one thing that this one does also have is these little holes. I'm loving those. And they're not simply just painted in place. They're sculpted. In fact, you can feel them as you run your finger across them. Even like down here, they've actually got holes in the bottom of the sweater. It's these little small touches that I really do appreciate. Coloring is very much Freddy Krueger coloring, right down to his glove that has the lighter tanned color, whereas the glove itself is actually done in brown. I don't see any areas of the sections of the palm, nor in the areas of the fingers are visible. It's just completely a regular, kind of looks like a garden glove or like a worker's glove. Except, like I said, it's got no rips and openings on the bottom there. Again, I'm really happy with the head sculpt. The hat, by the way, the fedora is not removable. It's affixed to the top of his head. Just loving that face sculpt, though. Spin it around. Now, again, like, if they had wanted to, Just, again, an idea throwing out there, NECA Toys making the most out of these molds. Because right now, they have this mold in their inventory. They have the Jason in their inventory. Why not get the most out of that? Give us an NES Freddy, which is usually what I always end up saying. Whenever we look at said Freddy or said Jason, I always immediately kind of think and trickle down to the idea of giving us NES colors for these. As much as my go-to would be more so an NES Jason, I would love really to see this guy done also in an NES color scheme with those oranges and yellows. So that's how I look at this guy's articulation. His head rotates all the way around in a slightly uncomforting way. I mean, it angles in such a way that because his head is always pointing down, kind of in a menacing manner, when you are rotating the head, it gives you, like I said, a very irregular look to it. You probably can't display Freddy with that. That would look just absolutely ridiculous. Although really from a distance, it kind of looks like he's got his hat down. It's until you spin the figure around. Oh, right, he's looking up at the ceiling. That's not going to work. The arms rotate all the way around. The hands also swivel. Swivel on both ways, actually. So really, if you wanted to, you can also turn the glove. Let's get his head back right. You can bring the glove inward like that as a possibility for displaying the figure. This hand doesn't really serve much purpose. It kind of is just aiding in his creeping, just a natural creeping pose for his arm. I guess you could have the arm up, but it looks like he's serving you a dish of spaghetti. And see, he's probably got some spaghetti on his face as well. And I guess because you can turn the hand around, once again, it looks like Freddy's asking for change. Just FYI, I probably would give him some change. He does have no waist articulation, and he has no leg articulation, unlike Jason, who could swivel back and forth on the legs. Unfortunately, Freddy Krueger is relegated just to be a pre-posed staction figure from pretty much like the neck down. Articulation is only in the arms, only in the head, and only in the hands, as we've already discussed. But again, that's okay. I'm okay with that. I don't need this guy necessarily to have tons and tons of posability. When it's all said and done, at the end of the day, what I've got is a really neat toon representation of Freddy Krueger. And really my only critique about this guy is the fact that his feet are very difficult to get onto a stand. Yes, you could probably only put one foot on the stand and it still supports the figure, but if you want the full effect, you're going to have to pull those legs away from one another to get them firmly planted on both peg holes that come included with the stand. I like that NECA Toys included the cardboard backdrop, just as a little extra bonus, something you could cut out and display with the figure. Kind of reminds me again of like the old 80s cereal boxes where there would always be like a mask or something you could cut out up from the box. I very much got that vibe when I was cutting it out from the back card. Admittingly, though, it doesn't work as well with Freddy Krueger as it does with Jason Voorhees. Jason Voorhees looked really good by having this silhouetted background, and I kind of wish that Freddy could have had the exact same thing. Those pipes look a little bit too big, and I know I'm spending a lot of time in final looks discussing the backdrop, something which is just made of cardboard, and in some cases, for most collectors, might even very well be a throwaway. So we'll go ahead. We'll just take that right off, and we'll look at Freddy Krueger on his own. A nice looking release of Freddy Krueger. Smaller, yes, than Jason Voorhees, but just as much menacing and imposing, I think, as his Camp Crystal Lake counterpart. Again, this is a great release from NECA Toys. Outside the box thinking, I have to admit, as well. NECA Toys has kind of given us cartoon representations of characters in the past. Usually those are from the head knockers or the bobblehead releases. But we've never really gotten like neat figures in like the vinyl style. This is, again, I guess maybe NECA Toys' foot in the door when it comes to some of these extra vinyl pieces that normally would be so inhabiting the comic book stores by other companies, just bogging the shelves. This is a nice, very healthy alternative. This is something I would definitely be on board for if they could release more Toony Terrors. I would be all over these like a bad habit. And bad habits usually for me involves picking up more collectibles, as you probably see here on this channel. This one and the Jason Voorhees, I'm really loving these so far. And I know I'm a bit hard to read here in Final Looks and in the course of these reviews, but just take my advice though. If you are a fan of Freddy Krueger and you're a fan of 80s cartoons, why not pick these up and add them to your collection? If you managed to pick these up already, let me know down below in the comments section what you guys think of the new Toony Terrors, Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger. Did you manage to pick this one up for yourself, or just based on this review, are these ones that you would be considering to pick up? And if NECA Toys were to continue this franchise, this new line of figures, would you be faithfully picking these up? I know I would be. We're still going to be having a look at the 2 Pennywise the Clown reviews and upcoming video views, so stay tuned for those, guys, if you are interested in this line. And make sure if you are new to this channel or a longtime viewer, you hit that subscribe button, swing on over to Elm Street, and turn on the bell notification so when future videos are coming onto this channel, like, oh, I don't know, the other 2 tiny Toony terrors. I keep wanting to say tiny terrors, but the other 2 Toony terrors of Pennywise the Clown in the miniseries and the feature film, the remake feature film. Those will be coming up in future videos, so stay tuned for those. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.